Welcome to Great Karate Myths, Debunking the Legends, a podcast that chops through the forest of martial arts folklore to reveal the true essence of karate. Join us, your hosts, Shania, Nathan and Tom, as we take you on a journey through the dojo of doubt, where we question the tall tales and test the traditions that have shaped karate as we know it. From the mystical to the misunderstood, we break down the myths and build up the facts. But don't worry, debunking doesn't mean disrespecting the art. We'll be celebrating the rich history of karate while setting the record straight. Whether you're a seasoned black belt, a novice starting your karate path, or just a curious listener, prepare to have your preconceptions shattered and your understanding of karate deepened. So tie up your belts, bow in, and let's get ready to rumble with truth. Welcome back to Great Karate Myths, Debunking the Legends. We've been on a bit of a hiatus for a year, but we're back. First episode back. So we've got Nathan, Kev, and Tom, and myself, Shania, and we've got some exciting news. We've got the Great Karate Myth has been republished in paperback. It's available on Amazon. In all marketplaces, it has a Kindle, so digital format and paperback. So we're going to talk a bit about the subject. Tom, do you want to open?
Well, I thought we'd talk about something that came up on the Reddit feed that you started, Shania, which was a comment. I can't remember the name of the person you mentioned, but they said, "Where's the evidence?" And so it might be a good place to start, actually, where the book and the practice actually meet, and how important it is to really have both, and not just have the book or just the practice. So I think that would be a good bit. Yeah. When's the evidence for it?
Yeah. So the question that was posed was the question was about Sanchin's historical role. So I focused on Sanchin, let's say. So. We said, Sanchin katas were not mere exercises. They were practical tools for weapons defense and peacekeeping. And the question was, what's your perspective on Sanchin's historical role? Common theme, skepticism, as we have had in the past. The common question was, well, where's the evidence?
Yeah. Well,
could I cut in here for a second?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know if it's true or not, but when the apple fell from the tree, and allegedly on Newton, maybe on his head, whoever it was, I think it was Newton. Yeah, that's gravity. I think the issues that people have are with the terminology, with the names, particularly with the terminology. So, the apple fell downwards. That's quite a good, reason to hypothesize that there's something called gravity that tends to make things fall down, and that's kind of where we're grounded. I won't develop that any further. I'll pass it back. Thank you.
Well, following on from that, the kata are the primary sources of evidence. So if people say, where's the evidence for it? It's in the kata. So really, to get a good perspective on the research in the group, is to come and actually experience the kata, to come and see what has been sort of unraveled, really, from a lot of work. And that reinforces the secondary sources, which is the history. And, what we get a lot in the karate world is people talking about the kind of book history first, and then making decisions about the practice and what the kata is and what it all should be from the book history. And really, I think that the approach that's in our group is that it's the other way around. It's the kata first, and then the history follows.
Oh, what an excellent point. Yeah, the kata actually, that's a great point, Tom, because the kata is actually the book, the book in physical movement rather than in words and letters. It is actually the catalogue of evidence.
Yeah. The Sanchin's a good one. We've talked about that quite a fair bit already, but it's Sanchin predates karate. It predates the kind of the life and shape it took in Okinawa. And so the book history in terms of Okinawan karate has no real contribution to really understanding what Sanchin was for. You have to really just go to the kata. You can't start with the history there. You can see what took place afterwards, after the functions have been lost or not transmitted, and that's something we can go into as well. And the different, usage and different applications it was given later on. But our starting point is always with the kata itself. And then once we've kind of found a lead or a thread to pull on and exploring the original functions, dipping our toes into the book history can sometimes be useful and helpful to see where things have gone later on. But in terms of the original function, the katas are the primary source.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But one of the problems that we're dealing with, and in terms of the books and the so-called history, is we're suggesting something that seems to be it's quite radical. And why would a bunch of people from England, from the UK, have? How can these people, namely us, make claim to or make the claims that we do, when seemingly the rest of the world, particularly Japan and Okinawa, don't profess the same understanding? What is it why should these people in England, in the UK, pipe up and challenge the the entire quotes received wisdom?
Well, Nathan, tell us.
It was an open question, but okay, it was. Yeah, it wasn't a rhetorical question, but there's too much attention paid to appearance, to whether where you come from, or whether how can somebody that's not Chinese or Japanese or Okinawan understand that the intricacies of this? But what we're dealing with here is a language left to us in movement. It's not it's not a vocabulary. It's not a dialectical thing. It's not about what language we speak or what continent even we live on. It's not that. It's a technical matter, and can anyone determine, given that the functions clearly were lost, and that's a whole discussion in itself. Can anyone look at the mechanics of this, the engineering? And that's what we've done. We've looked at the engineering, at the construction, and that's formed the basis for our understanding. And just to close this little a bit, if you look at Sanchin, given the hyperbole that surrounds it, the preparation for unarmed combat, what a strange way to, ask any good boxer or kickboxer or MMA person, would they prepare for combat with this strange sort of sequence of movements? Would that be a way to prepare for, all out, no holds barred conflict? That's a rhetorical question. The answer is patently no, it's not. Therefore, the starting point is to suggest that there must be something else going on there. There's a system in place within that kata structure. And what we've said, more than hypothesized, we've demonstrated is actually a weapons-based form, much to the chagrin of people who don't care for that, who were raised on the same stuff. I've been involved in this subject. 50 years is longer than 50 years. My entire adult life, I've devoted the most part of my adult life to this very subject. That in itself, I'm not claiming deserves any merit. What I am saying here is, Sanchin kata, as it presents, it's absurd to imagine or to suggest that is the the primary preparation for a no-holds-barred conflict or any form of unarmed self-defense, because it patently is not.
And that's and you just highlighted the assumption that's sort of across the board, really, that all of the antique forms, the forms from China, are all for unarmed fighting. It's just an assumption, when the suggestion's made that it could be something else. How could it ever be anything else? There's no way. How would you know? And so on and so on. We don't start with the assumption that it's for unarmed fighting. We don't start with any assumption. It's taking the technical content of an antique form and saying, what could you do with it? What could be done with it? And for all of them, really, a street fight or an unarmed, altercation or anything like that. I can't think of a single antique form that has anything that would be that useful for a street fight or a no holds barred fight. So if it's not that, then what is it? And that's a good starting place to look at these forms, just putting aside that assumption that it's unarmed and, well, what could it be? What do these shapes, what do these movements do? What are they efficient for? Why is this a good way to use the body, and what for?
Personally, from my own perspective of training in various arts, is that people didn't actually ask those questions. They just didn't. They just bought the line.
You expect someone to know what they're talking about, don't you? So if they say it's something, you just trust them.
Yeah, that's genuinely it. Yeah, that was my experience. So.
Yeah, Kev, I mean, your background has been in, before Ko-do Ryu, yours has been Lao Ga, Kung Goju, Ko-do Ryu, Wing Chun.
Yeah. Ko-do Ryu, we did the Sanshin, we did that. We did it with people belting you, slapping your legs and slapping your stomach and all that stuff and all the dynamic tension stuff. No. No, I remember it well.
I mean, what about the question where people say it makes less sense as a weapon because there's many Chinese versions of Sanshin available to study, and none of them are secretly weapons kata.
Yeah, but it's an interesting question because, and it is something that's quite involved to answer, because those Sanshins came later. And what, was there a prototype one? And it seems like that there was one that was the foundation for it all, and it's found its way into Ko-do Ryu. And why is it the prototype? Well, it's technically every single movement has a very specific function geared towards training the use and manipulation of a pair of sai. There's no frills and there's no additional flourishes or anything like that. Everything is is very, very specific, and is complete in many respects. And so, though there is, a development of the functionless Sanshin even in China. So you'll find that once the functions are lost there, the forms carried on and were taken and spliced together with other kung fu styles and martial arts styles and theatrical styles and all the rest of it. And you get the lots and lots of different, types of kung fu. What do none of them seem good answers for what their forms are actually for or where they come from. Nathan, do you want to jump in on that?
Oh, I do indeed. I think we covered that. These styles just seem to have arisen as allegedly as unarmed self-defense. I think what needs to be made clear at the moment is the disasters that happened in China during the Ming Dynasty. When the Ming Dynasty fell, 1644-45, they had every disaster you can imagine. Not only did they have the most horrendous
dynastic change through civil war, but they also had plague and disease and poverty, famine on a massive scale. We can look at this and recognize this may well be the time when much of the material and the thinking and the understanding was lost. I don't know how to put this, but the finer things in life go down the tubes when the substance hits the fan. A good example, and both of my parents were. So my mother experienced the Nazi German bombing, and my father was on a minesweeper in the last year of World War II. So I'm very close to the experience of World War II, thinking and my mum came. I can remember, so I'm just one generation down from people who were bombed and rationed and who went to war, and that's completely different from the experience that my kids have now. They are so far removed from that, and we're even further removed from the chaos and the disaster that happened at the fall of the Ming Dynasty, when a lot of this material was lost. So the fact that the sanchin was a weapon form, that's got completely lost. It got lost in not just the mists of time, but the travail and the difficulties that all of the people who passed it on went through, in the 17th century. So what they did manage to do, and bearing in mind that the traditional Confucian Chinese society of the period was intensely conservative, not in the way that we would understand or conservatism has been expressed, for instance, in the UK, but in the sense of the preservation of tradition. And tradition, many people, traditions are preserved quite often. Many adherents to those traditions don't actually know why they're following the rituals and behaviors that they do, because those traditions can become and do become obscure, but people will still follow them. This is the case for the kata. This is the case for that aspect of Confucian Chinese culture. They preserved the forms. They preserved them through thick and thin, through revolution, through disaster, through famine and disease, and there's still somebody carried on and passed down the forms, even though the purposes were lost.
Can't disagree with that. I think that's logical. People just follow what they've been taught to do and carry it on and don't question.
I think when you see as well in the Qing dynasty that followed the Ming, I think you find that the origins of lots of these so-called Fujianese boxing styles, kung fu styles like White Crane and Mantis and Pak Mei, and they seem to have got some Shaolin legends attached to them. A lot of it can kind of parallels the uprisings that were taking place to overthrow the Qing, and so that's where you probably find the roots of all these different styles and why there are so many different sanchins, and they borrowed from or existing material.
I think also one of the other misunderstandings that I see is being made is the assumption that sanchin has all the techniques to counter the weapons. It's not. It's the basic training kata. It's the basic drill to manipulate the sight. It's not the one that tells you what to do when countering another weapon or countering another a staff or a bow.
No,
that comes after. That's in Seisan and Sansiryu, and I think that's what I see is questions around well, they can't see how the kata has a minor set of techniques and basically one stance. How does it counter the weapons?
Well, it doesn't really counter them.
No.
None of it is not really react. They don't really. There are no scenarios in any of the kata. There's no like, if A does this, then B responds like this. There's not that doesn't exist because it's impossible to record anything like that because there's too many variables and too many possibilities. The kata are all proactive, which means you're going first, and what you've got is a set of things that you can do in terms of going first. And so the idea of the sai is very, very simple. It's to trap and pin the limb with one and strike with the other, with the intention of disarming. So you're not hitting the head, you're not hitting the spine. It's all very much directed at the limbs. But so yeah, it's pin, trap, and strike really, and that's what underpins all of it in terms of the three forms preserved in the Wei Chi. But there's no scenarios. There's no there's no choreography because you can't do that. And the sanchin is the basic training of how to manipulate the sai.
Yeah, and that's it, isn't it? I think for generations it's been stuck in this self-defense. It's the defense.
Yeah,
and it's not. It's on.
Yeah. But the big mistake. The big mistake is that it's been presented as something that's unarmed, and it's not. And so, in terms of providing evidence, I've got to say something here. The best explanation of Sansei of how that should be used with a pair of sai I've ever seen was demonstrated to me by Tom. I didn't really. I worked on the sanchin and the seisan, and I turned over my findings to the group, and Tom pursued them assiduously, and he came. We went to train next village from where I live when Tom came to visit, and he showed it to me, and I've never seen anything that good in terms of what the Sansei Ryu does. I don't gamble, but if I did, I would bet everything I had on what he demonstrated is correct. And although this might not be completely to Tom's liking, a good example though of his trap and pit and the purpose of the sai is can be seen in a demonstration that goes back 19 years. We've been at this some time as a group and as friends. At Seni in the UK, which was a UK celebration of British sport, and I think we were at the National Exhibition Centre in if I'm not mistaken, and Tom and his colleague Matt demonstrated the sai against the bokken, and I've still yet to see anything that good. This isn't a praise Tom session. It's just the fact that that shows, and I'm sure that Tom would elaborate on that and improve upon that and have other ways of showing that. And, fine, but still today, that is the best demonstration of what the sai was designed to do. That's actually, in my view, on camera. Just to add something quickly to that demonstration, it looks like, although I've just said the techniques are not reactive, we put that choreography together to present the techniques, so it looks like we're doing reactive things, but it's just a way of demonstrating the techniques. But you can't really do any choreography with it. You would just have to do it, and it would be a bit messy, and it would be a bit ugly, and you might muck it up and get it wrong. But the techniques you're kind of given a map of the territory where if you're on the corner or to the side of a person, you know what to do because you're so familiar with the practice, and so you've got your go-to. And we're dealing with very, very small amounts of time as well. We're not dealing with a long, drawn-out fight or anything like that, because the longer any kind of altercation goes on, even if you're going first, the more problematic it's going to become very, very, very quickly. So the job needs to be done very, very quickly. And so that's why that there aren't lots of, I think all of the antique forms are catalogued in this way. They're preemptive techniques, and they're showing you the different possibilities in terms of where you are in relation to the other person. But that's it. There's no, if he throws a punch or cuts with his sword or thrusts with the bow, what to do. If that happens, you're in big trouble anyway, you know. Yeah.
Which is indicated that, so in terms of any requirements or demands for evidence, the leap back in the Weiqi, Weiqi Ryu, as we've discussed on previous podcasts, one of the two recorded identified styles of Naha karate. In the Weiqi Ryu Sanchin, which in my view, in all of our view, is the original Seishan, when the substance hits the fan, so to speak, in the Seishan, there's a mechanism for that, which is the leap back, the raised left leg, you know, and one side above the head and one side, you know, hooks behind, because that operative is evading all of the potential nightmare cuts that he's facing, because the swordsman is loose with his sword and free to cut. So in terms of evidence, and probably this is slightly premature in terms of, this is something I was going to say as a conclusion, but now is appropriate. The evidence is available for anyone who cares to look at it on the film footage that we have released and in the publications that we have made, namely the new. So we had the original version of the Great Karate Myth, which was a hardback, and of course the hardbacks tend to be expensive. We now have a new version in paperback, which is inexpensive. So the evidence for anyone who actually wants to pursue it is there. This isn't a book promo. It's the evidence has been meticulously recorded. It's also can be seen on the film footage that Ko-do Ryu have put on the website.
Yeah, and I'll put some links in the description.
Good. Okay, Kev, do you have stuff to say?
Oh, well, in terms of that, I'll not say. I mean, I understand the weapon side to it because I've seen it and used to do some of it. So, I think it's a great discovery. I think it's can't fault it. I mean, it is a good discovery and good research. No one else has done it. No.
No, hang on. I just need to check. You used the word research. Are you qualified? But do you have any academic experience?
Oh, just a little bit. Yes. Yeah, but a fair bit, actually.
Oh, I heard a rumor that you had a master's degree.
Yeah, I've got 2 of those.
Oh, just the 2. Just that you know a little bit about research.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. Yes, I understand. I understand exactly what you're talking about, and I could totally get it. Yeah, I do get it. The weapon stuff was cracking fine. It really was. Good bit of research. Can't fault it. So.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. I think people need to get the book, read it, digest it, understand. If they're coming from, and I know we've covered this in a previous podcast, that we're not knocking what karate is now for a lot of people. Sport karate, it exists. Combat karate, it exists. It is what it is right now. We're talking about what the forms were for, the kata, historically, because and not what, and looking at how they became interpreted. We're looking at the logical, unbiased view of what the kata were, and I think that's a lot of sort of, there's a lot of unlearning what's been learned for many practitioners. Especially if they've come with a bias, especially if they've worked hard and got to quite a senior grades. And again, not knocking the grades, because that's a lot of effort that has got into those practitioners who have got their black belts. And
I mean, there's another side to the findings as well, isn't there? Because I really enjoyed what they even put together with the three forms of the meditation system. I thought it was superb. And then when it was unraveled as being it's weapons. That's kind of a
that's a story for another podcast. I think that's gonna.
I think so.
Yeah. I mean, we've spoken about the numbers that we had at one point. The numbers of practitioners that we had as a group.
It was a superb system. I still think it is to this day. So yeah,
the promise of what it could be.
Yes. Yeah, it's very good. Can't fault it. Much better than some of the stuff I did when I was younger. Say that.
Right. Well, I think we'll leave it there, and we'll come back with another episode and another topic next week. Thank you for joining us on this enlightening journey through the myths and legends of karate. If you've enjoyed our podcast, don't forget to subscribe and share it with fellow martial arts enthusiasts. If you want to keep the dojo lights on, consider supporting us through Buy Me a Coffee or Patreon. Your contribution helps us bring you more episodes. Remember, your support keeps the karate myth debunked and the podcast alive.